Hey, how's it going? This is Jake Tripp from the band Gunshine.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 5 of Worst of the Best. Today, like you just heard, we are very pleased to bring on Mr. Jake Tripp, bass player for the band Gunshine. If you guys have not checked out Gunshine, you are doing yourself a disservice. A great band from Florida, and they're putting out some great new music right now. And you guys should definitely give them a check out. But not necessarily going to talk about their music right away. We'll get to that. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that inspired Mr. Jake here to get into making his own music in the first place. We're going to talk about Jake's 3 favorite albums. He sent them over. And yeah, we can start with whichever one you would like to, Jake.
Um, let's start with Double Eclipse from Hardline.
Right on. Great album.
Yeah, I it's funny discovering Hardline. When I was a kid, I played a lot of video games, obviously,
Mhm.
and the Dreamcast had a cool library of you had a bunch of Sonic the Hedgehog games that featured music that featured kind of a rock and roll vocal track from none other than Johnny Gioeli, who turns out he is the vocalist of Hardline.
Right on.
Hardline at the time had they started out late '80s, early '90s. They were kind of in that real awkward period that hard rock was kind of going through at the time,
Mhm.
and again, they had one major album back then that was Double Eclipse. Um, I want to say several of the guys actually went on to be in Journey. I believe
Oh,
I could have this wrong. I believe Dean Castanova.
okay.
I believe he played drums on the record, and yeah, it was a great record from start to finish.
Yeah,
Guy had a killer register. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, that's crazy. I did not know the Journey trivia there. That is cool.
yeah,
Um, and also the Sonic the Hedgehog trivia. That's fun too. That's another late 80s, early 90s rocker. I don't know if you knew Ted Poley wrote a bunch of music for Ted Poley from Danger Danger wrote a bunch of
yeah,
music for
yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog. So cool that they both ended up in that same world. And yeah, as far as like that awkward period, I think there's a lot of bands from that late 80s, early 90s period that maybe haven't gotten all of the justice they deserve. And I think Hardline is definitely a great choice.
A
Double Eclipse.
a lot of really great stuff coming out around that time, though. I mean, you had Double Eclipse, you had stuff from XYZ, and
Yeah,
but again, yeah, early '90s it was awkward for them, but we still got some really great stuff out of it. I feel like.
definitely. XYZ, you bring them up. That's a big one for us and Ready to Strike. That huge inspiration stylistically. Just
Yeah.
another definitely underrated band in our opinion. But yeah, I mean, this album, I could totally see this being a standout, top pick album. There's great songs, front to back for me, ones that stick out like Doctor Love, but would definitely, yeah. What are the ones for you? What sticks out about this album?
Um, Probably "Rhythm from a Red Car" is
Great song.
his the notes he's hitting for the time was pretty wild.
Yeah.
I've seen footage of him performing recently. He can't quite get into that range these days. I mean, he still sounds great, but that's still the recording on that one I always fucking loved.
Yeah, I mean, that song and many others on the album just stand out. And like you said, just fantastic vocal work. I think they're doing some really great stuff. And yeah, it's funny for me. Like Hardline is one of those bands that I'll listen to and be like, "Oh, these guys are so good," and then I'll totally forget about for like a month, and then I'll hear them again. I'm like, "Dude, why do I not listen to these guys more regularly?" They're just a super tight, solid band, and it was, as a casual listener getting into this album. really front to back for the first time. Like I had heard Hot Sherry and the singles off of the album, but really listening to it front to back for the first time, I was like, yeah, this is staying in the routine of music that I'm listening to. And that's one of the things I love about doing this show and talking to guys like you is hearing other people's choices in albums and giving them a listen sometimes for the first time and just being like, yeah, I get it. This is a great album. So very cool, man. Um, Now as far as the album goes, was there any other tracks besides maybe Rhythm from a Red Car that stand out to you as just ones that you love about it? Anything, that really speaks to you?
Um, Bad Taste is a lot of fun. That's hearing all the extra vocal punches on that because again they had like I said they had Dean Castanova. They had I believe I think Neil Sean was one of the primary writers on the record.
Oh, wow.
Um, just a freaking all-star lineup at the time, and it was a real shame that it only lasted that one record.
Yeah, right.
And then it was, I believe it was 10 years. 10 years later, they finally put out Hardline 2. And it was from then on, it was always a very different vibe. It was a completely different lineup and everything. So,
Mhm. One of those
uh,
one and done albums, right? Where they just drop some absolutely fantastic work and everyone moves on, but what they left behind was great.
yeah, lightning in a bottle, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, as far as the great of the album, I think that covers a lot of it. Now, the fun thing I like about this show, doing this, is having to pick something off of here that if you just had to skip or get rid of, what do you think it would be and maybe why?
Um, I mean, all of it is. Uh, I don't think there's a bad song on the record, but if I had to choose one, it would probably be "Change of Heart."
Okay.
Just because it drops the energy just a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's really, I guess, the only thing I could think of. It's a great song. It's a great ballad. It's no, it's no Every Rose Has Its Thorn or anything, but it's still a great part of the catalog, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I could totally see that too. The change of pace being in the lineup, coming right off of the bat or right off of the back of Rhythm from a Red Car and then jumping right into that ballad, how that could totally, throw a little bit of a wrench into the mood.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. Great song. Well, cool. That is album number one. That's Double Eclipse by Hardline for everyone, in case you missed it. Now you sent me over two more and a little bit of a genre jump from Hardline. Still rock, but we're moving into a little bit more of a new metal territory with the next one. We've got See You on the Other Side by Korn.
Yeah. So that one, that was one of the first records that I went to a store and bought back in, it was like 2005, I think, when it came out. And it was kind of early on. I was still discovering a lot of music that I was into, and kind of, I guess, carving out what eventually were going to become influences in me doing this.
Mhm.
And me being a 14-year-old kid at the time, and I'm being exposed to a lot of this stuff for the very first time.
Yeah.
What sold me was the artwork. Um,
Okay.
it's David Stupakis did the artwork, and he has a very distinct style that's very um, it's very Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland
Yeah.
sort of vibe. I mean, I have the album cover literally tattooed on me
Oh, right on.
because that was the impact it had on me as a kid, and taking it home. And of course, back then I bought it was the explicit version. I had to hide it from my parents, and
Mhm.
that whole thing. Yeah, but it was a ride the first time I popped in the CD player and threw the headphones on and just jammed it all day, every day.
Yeah. I
Didn't
could
even wore the CD out. Um,
Wow. Yeah, I can believe it. I mean, especially like you said, you know, uh, kind of the same for me, like being a kid with maybe nothing to compare that to as a background. Like, you're very fresh to new music, and then being thrown into the fire, if you will, with an album like that, and just totally having your world expanded. That's, one thing I look back on myself as well, and just think like you'll never really have that experience again of that first album, that game changing album. So it's always cool to hear, what album that is for, guys like you and other people that I've done this with. And I can totally see it with this one. I mean, what, 2005? Sure, there was other stuff like that going on, but Korn really encapsulated like that kind of new metal sound. And was there anything like that that you had listened to before? Or was that kind of like your first foray into like the harder side of music?
I believe, if I remember right, I mean, I had been familiar with stuff like, I was into Metallica and Sex Pistols and Ramones and all
Mhm.
kinds of other stuff, but nothing that really jumped out the way that this did. I mean, the sound was, maybe it wasn't the most original at the time, because I know that was kind of on the back end of the glory years for the band. Um, it was very different. It was a lot of industrial
Yeah.
elements, a lot of modern pop production, or modern for the time, I guess. Um, it was very weird. It was experimental. It was different. It was still considered heavy, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, the just the general vibe of everything from. I mean, obviously, we all know the song "Coming Undone."
Yeah.
That one was probably way overplayed. I think that was the "We Will Rock You" of Korn. I think that's
Sure,
the one
sure.
that they
That's a
played in
great
the football
comparison.
games in the stadium. Totally stadium ready song. Um, but I remember the opening into Twisted Transistor. The very first time I threw it in the CD player, I thought, "Oh shit, maybe the CD's broken or something," because it was nothing but just warbling, oscillating, static noise for 30, 40 seconds before the actual song kicks in. Um, and you just got all kinds of, you got noise, you got percussive elements, you got vocal layers just for days. A lot of it to a point where it doesn't even sound human sometimes.
Yeah, no, for
Um,
sure.
and it really showed in the live performances of the band at the time. You really couldn't. That was a record that I remember was very difficult for them to kind of capture the vibe live, because again they weren't overproducing the live show at the time and everything, um, and the album had a very the emotional range was very kind of wild, because you had stuff that was aggressive, you had stuff that was playful, you had stuff that was a little perverted,
Mhm.
and then you had the rap. The ending track on the record was Tearjerker, which was basically the very first time they attempted, I guess, a ballad in a sense. It was unique for them at the time, and I remember, even to this day, I don't think the critics loved it. Um, but I never, like, personally, I never understood that, because that was the one that really got me into that band.
I can totally see that. And I think, you know, listening to this for the first time myself, like same thing here with Korn. Like Hardline is definitely much more in my wheelhouse of music that I'm familiar with and regularly listen to. Now, as far as like new metal, what most people consider go, specifically like Korn, I'm not usually one to listen to it very much. Nothing against it,
Yeah, yeah.
just but so diving into this album for the first time, the one thing that really stuck out to me, and I could totally see, like you had mentioned, them having a hard time capturing that vibe of this album live, because it really, front to back, it is very, the thing that stuck out to me was like it's very, in a very cool artistic way, kind of like uncertain and all over the place in the energy that the album puts out. um in in a very fun, like experimental way. Like I love how much he was, all of the guys in the band were experimenting with just like what it sounds like to me is just like let's experiment with like just what we can create here. Like there, I didn't feel like there was a lot of limits on the album, and it felt very like open and emotionally experimental, which I think was very cool listening front to back. There's a lot of sides of Korn that I heard listening to it that I typically don't associate with Korn, just as a casual listener. So that was really cool to hear. And yeah, I mean, that's one thing I love about music from this era and before, like you had said, like the 30, 40 seconds on the first track of just hearing, the static and you even not being sure, like, is my CD broken? Like one thing I love about music and like album rock, especially when it was like pressed on physical media, is you had bands that would do that where they put hidden tracks or long intros and like really set a vibe and a mood with the music that you're about to listen to, which I feel like we lose a little bit with like the short attention span and Spotify and like streaming medium for music. So it's really fun to go back and listen to music from this era and really just listen to an album the way an album was meant to be listened to, and just take it all in as like a finished body of work.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. Yeah, Coming Undone, obviously, like you said, there We Will Rock You. I love that comparison. Um, was there anything else on the album that like any other tracks that you really connected with or that stand out to you still listening back to it, however many years later since the first time you listened to it?
Um, Liar was always kind of a favorite. That one was a real fist pumper at the time. Uh, for no one, that's
Mhm.
that one again was very very unique for them. There's a lot of double kick drumming that they weren't really, I guess, doing a whole lot of back then. But yeah, I mean, it was very very experimental for the band because especially the catalog they had leading up to that, they were down a guitar player at that point. And they kind of, Korn has always been one of those bands. What I've always enjoyed about them is they've always somehow, at least from where I'm sitting, they've always had the ability to make every album sounds completely different, whether it's production quality or the team that they hired to help produce or just the general vibe of the whole thing.
Mhm.
Korn is one of those bands where every album, at least back in the early days, some of the newer, more modern stuff, the lines are getting a little blurred, but at least back in those days, every record that they put out had its own identity.
Right.
And this one just turned it all on its head, completely threw the formula out. And they were, I always like to look at it, it was the beginning of kind of their Zappa era, because they definitely wrote a few albums that were a little bit more bizarre. And a lot
Mhm.
of it, again, came from the absence of, Brian Welch when he left. And somehow it was like they were always trying new things on each record, which some people loved it, some people didn't love all of them, and to me, it's still, from an influential standpoint, it's still like it's the album that I think of when I think of Korn. I mean, I got the shit tattooed on me for a reason, so.
Yeah. Right on, man. Yeah, and especially difficult once you've gotten it tattooed on your body. If you had to pick one, if you had to pick pick a song off of the album that you could skip over if you really must, what would it be?
There's a couple on this one. Again, it goes back to it's the kind of the change in energy.
Mm.
Um, Throw Me Away would probably be one of them. It's a great song, great vocal hook, but it definitely slows everything down quite a bit.
Mm.
And I guess maybe that's just you know just a thing. I like energy that's very consistent throughout a record. Um,
Sure, like once you get that vibe going, you want to, experience it
Keep
fully. I
going.
could, yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, all right. That is number two. We got one more time, See You on the Other Side by Korn, their 2005 album. And then on to last but certainly not least, this one, I think, as a listener coming into it for the first time with a fresh set of ears and not really ever even hearing of Celldweller before, this one I think I was the most pleasantly surprised with and was definitely the most interested in. Yeah, Celldweller's self-titled album, their 2003 album. I gotta say, as a Celldweller virgin, great album. I think the thing that stuck out to me was it they did a fantastic job just encapsulating um I think like you said, maybe the switch in energy uh in Korn's album once you get to Throw Me Away. I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about the Celldweller album was front to back. It felt like I was in the same like they captured the aura and like the audio aesthetic of this album very well. I think it's just a great experiment in um just yeah, a vibe.
Yeah. Well, and the rabbit hole on that one is tremendous because I was, 10, 12-ish years ago, I was really getting into industrial music. I was getting into anything that blends electronic music production with rock guitars,
Mm,
so on and so forth. I mean, I was obsessed to a point, and I still kind of am actually. And I came across Celldweller through the label that he is actually on, that he actually co-owned. It's Fixed Music.
okay.
So the story with that album, the story with Celldweller in general, Celldweller is actually not even a band. It's a solo guy. It's one guy
Okay.
that does it all. Started out as a drummer in the '80s. He was into thrash metal. Then he got into industrial music. Started creating stuff in his basement. That's, I guess, kind of where the name Celldweller eventually came from.
Hmm.
Um, Early '90s, he built a band from the ground up called Circle of Dust, which Circle of Dust is very similar in nature, but it's heavier. It's a little bit more raw. It's a little bit more. It's The technology is a little bit more old school. He used cheap keyboards and broken drum machines to make a bunch of records. He made four Circle of Dust records starting in like 91, 92, I think. And the story, to sum up the story in a nutshell, did a little bit of touring in the early '90s, hated touring, uh, put a few records out, got a really bad record deal,
Hmm.
and late by the end of like '97, he was like, "Yep, I'm done with Circle of Dust. I'm through with this whole thing. I'm through with this label. Through with this deal." And somewhere between then and Celldweller, now the Celldweller debut, he builds this project, uh, records what became the Celldweller self-titled debut. He, I guess, was doing a lot of he does a lot of work for TV and video games.
Okay.
Uh, a lot of the music that's in a lot of like modern games even today, he still does like Killer, I think Killer Instinct, Battletoads,
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff
Wow.
like that. Um, but Celldweller basically launched his career. Again, a little bit of touring, but he's not really Clayton's not really he's not a touring guy. I don't
Mhm.
think. It's very much a studio based thing, and yeah. So back to when I found it, it was probably 20, I want to say it was 2017, 2018 that I came across this. And this is
Okay.
this was one of those records. I was like, man, I was all about, early 2000s, all the weird new metal alternative stuff that was coming out around then. I have no idea how this album like was under my radar the entire time. I have no idea how I never discovered it. It must have not really gotten out there that far, but
Yeah,
uh,
same. Because this is one I listened to. all the way through, and especially for the era that it was released in. Like you
Yeah,
said, I think what 2003 with some of the other very similar artists that were, rising to prominence at that time, you would think that this would be right in with that mix. I mean, there's some fantastic
yeah.
songs on this album, so
Dripping with Y2K
yeah.
aesthetic, just like front to back. I mean, when I think of music from that time period, this is the album that I always think of. Just
Mhm.
just as a kind of a blanket, just as a blanket, I guess. But
Right.
immediately, album kicks off. You got Switchback, which again, very very early 2000s. He had actually been writing that one since about 2001. So
Okay.
it's one of those. Went through a million iterations and then it finally landed on the record. Um, Stay With Me again, great song. Really, really changes up, does a 180 in terms of the whole vibe of that one.
Mhm.
And then you've got Last Firstborn, which the first time I was jamming that in the car, my wife thought that I was listening to like the Blade soundtrack or something.
That's a great comparison, though. It really does have that very just like hyper futuristic industrial sound to it.
Yeah,
And like the way you said it, very Y2K. Like definitely an album that I could see myself pulling off of LimeWire in the early 2000s.
I'm sure a lot of people did too.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember the name. I had never heard the name until less than a decade ago. I was scouring the internet, and there's a lot of really great affiliated artists with him, and it was a whole rabbit hole that I just kind of jumped headfirst in. But they on because I got there's got to be like 30 something songs on the record.
Mm.
It's a lot of remixes and a lot of kind of alternate cuts that he put on it. But another standout, as far as I was concerned, was he does the song "Tragedy," which I didn't learn this until a little bit later, but it's actually a cover of a Bee Gees song of the same name.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't really resemble it as much. I mean, it's got kind of the whole dance track and everything, and I've gone through and listened to the original, and it's very interesting, the style change that he
Mm.
that he kind of threw on it. So
Yeah, cool. I never would have guessed.
yeah,
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed pulling this up for the first time is yeah, long album. Not necessarily in a bad way, but yeah, there's a lot of work on this. So
yeah, it's definitely in terms of artists in general, the lore around them and everything was always very interesting. Uh, Again, stemming from being Circle of Dust, and then he became Celldweller, and he's got a couple other projects as well. It's Scandroid, which is kind of like 80s synth wave
mhm.
aesthetic. He does you know several projects that all sound completely different, but it's all one guy masterminding it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love finding projects like that. You
Yeah,
know, to me it's especially impressive because being someone who's played in a band forever, I can't imagine being able to write that much music without the input of other musicians around me to kind of elevate it. And so when you find, for me, it's especially impressive when you find someone who's like a solo artist like this, who has this crazy body of work and it all sounds so compelling and to know it all comes from just one mind is just something
yeah.
to me that's really impressive. So
Multiplied by half a dozen
yeah.
different iterations. I mean, it's definitely I'm not surprised at all. The guy has like a worldwide cult following, but it's very very underground.
Right.
Unless you play a lot of video games, I guess. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, it's almost like it's like musically schizo almost.
Yeah, I get that. Well, the faithful question, if you had to pick a song, there's plenty to pick from, but if you had to pick
Yeah.
one, what do you think it would be?
Um, Some of the towards the end, some of the remixes and demos I could probably live without.
Mm,
There's, but in terms of like actual songs, I mean, again, probably hmm, probably the Stars of Orion again kind of
okay.
drops the energy just a little bit. Uh, Crazy. I mean, the album starts incredibly strong. I mean, you got, like I said, you got Switchback, you got Last
Yeah.
First. Frozen is like that should have been a big single. I don't really know why that. I don't know how we never got that on the radio back in the day or anything.
Yeah, right.
Symbiont is really good. Uh,
One that stuck out to me was Own Little World. I thought that was a great
yeah,
track too.
yeah. No, it's all really excellent, and uh, and it kind of has like a concept sort of feel. It's supposed to kind of take you on a journey a little bit. He didn't really refine that until I think some of the later albums.
Mm,
Some of the later ones are much more uh,
linear.
very linear. Yeah, it's kind of like you start in one place and there's a bunch of lore that gets revealed, and he did like a comic series at one point, and it's just so much that went into it clearly. And
Yeah,
this was the first time. This was the first one that he did.
right. Which is adds to the impressive factor.
Yeah.
Well, very cool, man. Thanks again for coming on and letting me chew your ear about some music.
Of
And
course, it's a pleasure.
yeah, it was a good time. And before you go, if you feel free to, plug all of the upcoming Gunshine dates where you guys are going to be, what you're up to, maybe with the band and yourself is individually, and yeah, let us know what's up.
So we're going to be on tour pretty much the rest of the year. We start back out in early June. So we're leaving out in like 3 weeks. Going to be pretty much everywhere. We're doing. Let me see if I have the list on me right now because I think there's like at least 50 confirmed dates.
Awesome.
But yeah, we're doing. So we're starting out June 4th. We start in Detroit, Michigan, Token Lounge. We're going to be all over the Midwest in June. We're going to be July. We're going to be headed to Whiskey a Go Go.
Right on.
Returning to Hollywood. August again, Full Throttle Saloon, Sturgis, and
Oh,
yeah,
fun times.
gonna be pretty much all over the place through maybe like November, and then that'll be our year, and then next year we'll see what happens.
Cool, right on. Well, from me and all the guys in Ready to Strike, Jake, thanks again for coming on, man. I wish you guys the best of luck on this leg of your tour. And I've heard great things about the Token Lounge. If they happen to be around, say what's up to the guys from Wanted. They're a great band out of Detroit.
Of
Um, and yeah, once again, thanks for your time. This was fun.
course, thank you guys. I gotta say again, I gotta plug it. I love the cover of Party all the time. I've been jamming that almost nonstop since I've been playing.
Right on. I'll pass it on to the Tyken boys too.